Okay guys, I am back for another movie review. Today I thought I would do Don't Be Afraid of the Dark with Katie Holmes. Rented it a couple days ago at Redbox, and I have to say this was strange because at first I thought it was a little cheesy. I thought the little creatures, that's not a spoiler by the way, it tells you on the box. It's about these little creatures that attack the Katie Holmes and the little girl. And I thought it was kind of goofy at first. And it could have been a scarier movie if it was a ghost story or something and they're in this old house. But then I started to think, how many times have we seen that? And at least this was a pretty original idea. And I did get some enjoyment out of that. I have to say that I didn't really get bored. I wanted to see what would happen. I wanted to see the ending. So I have to recommend this movie based on that. You can get it at Redbox now. It's out on DVD, so it's really cheap. And this is a fun movie to watch. I did like it. So I'll get down to the movie, these spoilers. Basically, you have this little girl and her dad, who is fixing up this really old house to sell. The interior decorator is Katie Holmes, who he's seeing now, and the little girl kind of resents him for seeing a younger woman, I guess, and her mom sent her to go live with her dad, so she's really upset about it. Most of the movie, at least early on, this kid acts like a total horse's ass. But there was this like fireplace type thing in the basement of the house. And it shows that back when the house was built, the original owner was this guy, Mr. Blackwood. He was a painter, and he lived there. And all we really see at the beginning of the movie is him calling one of his servants, I guess, downstairs. He's got a wire set up on the steps to trip her. She falls, and then he takes like a chisel thing and just cracks her teeth out. And we hear these little voices in the background like saying they want teeth, and just weird stuff like that. So he cracks her teeth out, and then he shows her that he also cracked his own out. And he goes in front of this fireplace and he offers up the teeth to these little creatures. We can't really see what they are yet. And they have this weird voice, they're whispering, and they say they want children's teeth. And it's really creepy, but it's also goofy. And so they don't want the adult teeth, and he says, please, it's the only way I can see my son. We don't really know what's going on yet. And then they drag him into this old fireplace thing, and we see like this huge hole that leads to hell or something. So that's the only info we have. So they cut back to the future, and we see the little girl arriving at the house. She's kind of mad, but she goes to play in the yard. And one of the people who works at the house, his great-grandfather, worked at the house too, and apparently he knows what's going on. And he tries to tell the girl, don't play around there. But she finds out there's a basement to the house that no one else knew about. So they start cracking down the doors, they get to the basement, and they find Mr. Blackwood's private office. The fireplace is there, and the little... as the adults leave, the little girl hears the creatures whispering. So she goes back by herself later, and she steals some tools, and she tries to crack it open, and eventually these things get out. And they start coming around her room and saying, let's be friends. And it was just really funny. But for some reason, they're obviously evil, but I guess the girl doesn't really mind, and she keeps talking to him. And they do mischievous things. They take her dad's razor, he can't find it. Then they cut up Katie Holmes' dresses, and the little girl, of course, gets blamed for all of this. And she starts to freak out about these creatures. She goes down to the fireplace and says, if you guys, did this stuff, just tell me, I'm not mad. And the creatures are just still whispering these evil things at her. And the servant guy who warned her not to play with them comes downstairs and tells her to get out. And by the way, these things are afraid of light. This guy has a flashlight and it kind of burns them. They stay out of the light. Flashlights, any light. And after she leaves, they talk to this guy and they said, you told too much. You couldn't keep your mouth shut. And he says, I didn't say anything. And then all of a sudden these little furry gray creature things started attacking this man, and they cut him. They steal these little spikes and they stab him. They cut his legs and his face, and he's all messed up, and they stab him with scissors. He makes his way upstairs and he collapses. He doesn't die, he just gets into the hospital. So the little girl is now afraid of these things. She tries to tell Katie Holmes, she tries to tell her dad, nobody believes her. More and more stuff starts happening. Eventually Katie Holmes goes to see the servant guy who was attacked. He tells her to look up Mr. Blackwood at the library and find out he was a painter and find some of the work he did later in his life. She goes, she finds out he drew these horrible creatures, the same creatures that the little girl's been drawing. He, apparently they're tooth fairies. They're evil little tooth fairy creatures, and they steal teeth, and leave money behind people's pillows or something like that. But every so often they kill a person and then turn them into one of them. It's how they keep their ranks strong. So Mr. Blackwood is now one of these furry creatures. He's kind of like the leader of the group or something. And Katie goes home. She tries to tell the girl's dad. He doesn't listen, so they have this party. And she's really pissed off at him, but her dad throws a party, and she's got this camera. She's thinking she's going to try and take a picture of one of these things. Well, she ends up getting locked in the library. The things start attacking the little girl. She's using the flash on the camera to scare him away. The party starts to hear the noise. They finally bust into the library, and her dad sees the picture and he finally believes her. So that night, the dad, Katie Holmes, and the little girl are getting ready to leave, and the creatures just go apeshit. They start attacking them. They knock the dad out. Katie Holmes gets knocked out. Sally comes down, or that's the little girl, comes down to check on Katie Holmes, and the creatures attack her, and I guess presumably knock her out, because the next thing we see is she's got a rope tied around her and they're trying to drag her into the hole. Well, the dad cannot get into the house because they locked him out when he comes to. Katie Holmes finally wakes up. She runs down, tries to save the little girl from going into the hole. She takes a razor and starts cutting at the ropes, but the rope starts to tighten around Katie Holmes' leg, and it just, all of a sudden she gets dragged into the hole. But it is really brutal because the hole is, it's really small. It's like a tiny little box, probably something like that. And Katie Holmes is standing in front of it, and they're pulling her with such force her leg, the bottom part, her shin, cracks in half. And it was just nasty. The dad finally gets in the house. He runs down. He's checking on the little girl. She's crying. And we see Katie Holmes have one last ditch effort holding herself from going into the hole, and then she just goes in. And the little girl kills the Mr. Blackwood furry creature with the camera. So that was it. She dies. The little girl and the dad are really upset. And then we see sometime later they come back to visit the house, but they refuse to go all the way in. The little girl drew a picture of Katie Holmes, and she leaves it at the doorstep. Her and her dad leave, and then we see a gust of wind blow the picture. It goes all the way to the basement. It goes all the way to the furnace and gets sucked in. And then we hear the creatures talking about how they're coming back to hurt us, and there will be more, and they're going to try and hurt us. And then we hear one that's got a girl's voice, and it's Katie Holmes, who's now one of the furry creatures, and she says, "It's okay, more people will come, and we have all the time in the world." So the big ending is Katie Holmes gets turned into one of these furry creatures. So that's the movie. Like I said, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it had some original ideas. Sometimes it's good to see something new every once in a while. It doesn't have to be the same movies all the time, ghost stories and what all. It wasn't a scary movie, but it was entertaining. So I hope you guys like this review, and I'm going to try and see if I can find a copy of the WWE Kane movie, See No Evil, to do a review of that tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.